Welcome to the week of April 28th. This past week has been very interesting. It's been a plan B for many of you that have raced, and it's gone really well. I hope that continues over into this week, which of course in Indianapolis is mini marathon week. So we'll talk about a training week, a race week, and then also some specific tips on how to break down the mini marathon course. The high quality workout this week, if that's for you. If you're racing, it's not. If you're in race recovery, it's not. But if you're ready for a workout, it's short steady state run plus dessert. That steady state run is for most of you about 3 miles at 80 to 85% or threshold. After a 400 or 800 meter recovery jog, then we launch right into some 400s. For most of you, it's 4. Some of you have a few more than that. But we're not really worried about heart rate on that. We're not really even worried about pace. We're worried about effort. Run those hard. They should be fast and hard, and you should be going anaerobic in those. The recovery is 200 meters. If you're doing it on the road, you can just do equal recovery time. So if it takes you 75 seconds to run the quarter, jog for 75 seconds, and then into the next one. It's just a short set. It's a mile for most of you. Some of you might have 1.5 miles or up to 2 miles of quarters. So it's a relatively short speed workout, but it's bricked together with the steady state run. What we're trying to do with this is maintain all the stamina that you've built all spring long, but also start adding some economy and speed to that. We're going to be transitioning into faster running over the summer, with the thought that most of you are going to be doing marathon and half marathon as your goal race in the fall. And this will get your speed, your VO2, all those great things that really help when you do the more marathon and half marathon specific workouts to be even faster going into those, and of course faster on race day. The moderate quality workout this week. Again, not if you're in recovery or not if you're racing this week, but it's fast threshold minutes. And it's typically 8 to 12 for most of you, depending on your total mileage and your weekly mileage and what you can support with that. But 8 to 12 times a minute at threshold, so it's pretty fast, but you're not going anaerobic. It's not as hard as the quarters were as the dessert on the high quality workout, but it's fast. And if you went, these are a minute, if you went 1:15, you'd go anaerobic. So it should be plenty fast, but then you're coming back with the slow-mo recovery jog of 1 minute to 1.5 minutes and repeating that. Do the math on this and figure out how far you think you're going to go with these minutes on and then 1 to 1.5 minute off, because I might not have your mileage perfect in training peaks, but figure that out so you don't go way over or you're looking at a really long cool down afterwards. And this is very much like this. We're trying to maintain, but we're also preparing for the anaerobic work to come. The long run this week, if you're training through, is an endurance long run. As we shift towards faster, higher intensity running for a few months here, you would think that we can let the mileage drop, we can let the long runs drop. And yeah, you're right, but we don't want to let it drop too much, because we know one of the predictors of success is running more. So we're going to measure that by how many miles that you run in a year. And no, you can't cheat and just run to the test and do that and expect to improve. But if we're doing the right things in terms of quality throughout the year, and you have a really good mileage year, it's pretty hard not to get better. So that's why we're keeping those up there. But also, the more mileage that you run, when we're doing 8 to 12 of something like that, those 8 to 12 are stronger. You don't see the fall off if you have the endurance background and we're maintaining that mileage. So that's why we're going to do that as well. When we go into the anaerobic, if you can run 8 quarters before you slow down, we want to get you to where you can run 12 quarters before you slow down, because of the endurance that you've built and then also that we're maintaining through that period. I hope that makes sense. The race week quality: 2 miles at goal pace. 2 miles at half marathon pace is significant for some of you. For others, if it's more a question of endurance and stamina, maybe it's not quite as challenging. But 2 miles at half marathon goal pace, if you're racing the mini, and then coming back with 4 times 1 minute comfortably fast. So again, nothing as hard as that, not even really as hard as that, but we're trying to just get a good tune-up that requires little to no recovery. And if we can do that, you're going to be tuned up. Then you have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday that are all easy or off days. So you're being well recovered quickly and ready to go racing. Okay, mini marathon. This course lends itself, I think, very easily to breaking down in terms of what kind of effort that you want. I'm going to do a little bit of shifting here so I can have the course map in the foreground. Okay, so if we think in terms of starting this race, the mini can stir up a lot of adrenaline, a lot of emotions, because it's pretty important in Indianapolis. Many of you have run it a lot of times. Many of you have some very fond memories of racing this course. Others of you have had some crash and burn memories. So it can stir up the crazy like very few other races can. So I like to think about it from the start line to Michigan, which is about 1.5 miles. That's where you really have to fight the emotions and the adrenaline and make sure you're not going out crazy. And if you can tell you're kind of on edge and the adrenaline is really high, relax, 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 because it won't feel like too much work, but you'll be out way too fast, way too hard. After the mile, you do go up a hill in White River Parkway that you wouldn't notice in most occasions, but it is uphill. And if you're through that a little bit too fast, you're going to pay for it. So we want to stay nice and cool during that, because you're probably going to be going plenty fast enough. If you're not, it's probably because of the crowd. Once you get onto Michigan and you have this stretch until you get onto the track, that's a place to just get in a good rhythm, nice, smooth. Make sure that you realize this is 13.1. There's no great benefit to hitting 5 miles a little bit too fast. So just nice rhythm, stay in control. You'll have a lot of people passing and you'll be passing a lot of people, and it can be a little disconcerting because it's such a big race. But just get in that rhythm. You're setting yourself up for when it's time to go racing. Then you get onto the track at about 5 3/4 miles. You hit 6 shortly after you get in there. The major hill on the course is as you go into the track. You go down underneath the stands and then come back up, and that thing is wicked. It is steep. It is so steep that it's hard to run down, and it's certainly hard to run up. Stay under control. Yes, your breathing is going to increase, your heart rate's going to increase, your effort's obviously going to increase. But when you get to the top, gradually get back under control. Don't slow down too much. Let it come back to you. But then when you get on the flat, you're going to be in good shape. Realize you're going to be on that track for 2.5 miles. It does not go by nearly as quickly as a 1/4 mile track. It doesn't go by nearly as quickly as you see those cars going at 220 or whatever miles per hour. It's going to take a while. And a good way to break that down is just realize, okay, 2.5 times my race pace, that's how long I'm going to be on here. So don't try to rush this. Don't overcook this. Try to stay on the shortest possible route, because obviously if you move up on the track, you're going longer distance. But now it's a good time to be at threshold, to feel like any faster, this is going to be too hard. But I also don't want to give time away, because now you're getting on there at about halfway through the race and you're coming off over halfway through the race. So good, honest effort, but don't overcook it. When you leave the track, it still takes a little while to get to 16th Street. When you get to 16th Street, you're at about 9 miles. And this is where the racing starts. When you come off that track, if you feel like, okay, I've done a good job managing my effort, I haven't given any time away, but I'm not overcooked yet. I feel like I have this 4 miles or so that I can push and I can go racing. That's when it starts. So from 9 until about 11.5, when you get to White River Parkway, that's the time to really start pushing and try to empty that tank. If you get to White River Parkway and you're kind of hanging on a little bit more than you think you should, okay, wait till you get to New York. New York is at about 12 miles. And I'll tell you, that last mile on New York Street is maybe the longest mile in Indianapolis because it is a straightaway. It seems like it should go by faster than it does. It's an area that most people that live in Indianapolis and have been in Indianapolis a lot, it doesn't seem like it should be that long, but it takes a while to get to the IUPUI track. Then it takes a little while to get past that to the auditorium and the gerbil tube going across. And then you notice there's this pretty significant uphill that it wouldn't be an uphill if you weren't on fumes coming down that stretch at the end of a half marathon. And then it seems to take a little while before you get from there to the finish. So manage that mile, realize it's going to take me this long, but that's where the racing is done. And unless you're really far up front where it's spread out a bit, there's a lot of people you can pass. You might get 100 people just in that last mile. So be ready for that. Don't hold back too much, but realize that's where you're going to have to spend a lot of your mental and physical energy. One of the things that I've had a talk with about a lot of people here recently, and it's always interesting to me when people will come to me and notice this, because I know I've talked about it, but when they notice it themselves, now the mental cue is clicked. Cadence, cadence, cadence. When I'm out there and I see the people coming down the last mile, you can see people fighting, and it's almost like slow motion because they're kind of launching themselves each step and then kind of floating and landing a little bit too hard because they've kind of gone up. If you get that cadence and you're maintaining it for most of you at 180 or a little bit higher because it's race day, if you can do that, you're getting more power out of that push-off. And in the days of super shoes, that's where the magic comes from. It doesn't come from floating in the air with them. It comes from hitting the ground and popping back off. So make sure that cadence is good. And if your legs are going, just keep telling yourself, get my foot down, get my foot down, get my foot down. And that's going to help get you through. And make targets of people. I'm going to get that one. I'm going to get that one. And maybe it's not the person that's right there. Maybe it's somebody that you've noticed kind of a long way and they're right there. You know that you can get them. If you're thinking about that, the people that are behind you trying to catch you aren't going to be able to do it because you're still in that attack mode towards the finish. So it's a great race. If you break it down that way into smaller segments, I think it's much more manageable. So as we always do in almost every race, except some competitive situations where we know something else is to your advantage, we're staying under control basically for the first third or at least the first 5 miles. We're pushing the red line for the next 5 miles, and then the last 5K we're going over that red line. But if you break it down into those smaller segments, I think it's really going to be beneficial. So there's your week. There's some race day ideas for you. I hope to see you at the mini marathon. Check out the newsletter for meeting spots and some other details for race day.